This is Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Adam Carolla.
All right, that's about all the time we have. I want to thank Mark Garrigus for flying out from Tito. Where'd you fly in? Teterboro?
Yeah. Teterboro to here.
So Mark cut his thumb, and now he's suing himself, the butcher block, the knife manufacturer.
I made the mistake of letting one of my assistants, who insisted that I get a coronavirus antibody test, and she administered it. She's not an RN. And now I wish I could sue her because it immediately got infected and blew up. So,
oh, really? So she just did the pinprick blood thing?
Pinprick. So that shows you that's the most dangerous part of coronavirus, is to get the antibody test.
See, I let the ladies just take it out of my neck. Sorry. Mark Garrigus is, of course, a famed attorney, and this is Reasonable Doubt, and we appreciate you guys showing up here tonight. We got some stories we want to talk about. First and foremost, I guess, the curfew, because...
I don't know, none of you, maybe you have heard of it. We have a governor, Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you're familiar with Gavin. He's unique. Gavin was married, just to give you a little background, to Kimberly Newsom Guilfoyle.
Is it Guilfoyle?
Guilfoyle. Kimberly was a lingerie model, then became a deputy district attorney in Los Angeles. I tried cases against Kimberly when she was a young deputy, and she was very good. Then she left and became a San Francisco deputy district attorney.
He would have won more cases if he didn't have a boner the entire time, because all the blood had shifted and he wasn't able to concentrate, and he didn't want to stand up to object. I
will tell you one thing about Kimberly could use her wiles in pretrial, but Kimberly had a problem in trial. In trial, and I hate to be sexist about it, but it's an observation, women jurors do not like... They're very hard on other women, and women jurors would not buy anything that she would sell
because of her beauty.
Because of her beauty,
I got the same shit with men.
Yeah. They're always.
These guys all fucking hate me because of the aesthetic. They can't get past it.
And she then married Gavin. There's a famous picture, if you Google it, of the two of them lying in a very ornate, Trump-like looking apartment on the floor. They then got divorced. She then married, I think, the head of Court TV or somebody. And now she's famously with Don Jr.
Yeah, what a fucking...
When Trump goes to visit Gavin Newsom on during the forest fires, and there's a famous picture of the two of them, and you wonder what they talk about at that point. You know, my ex is now with your... son.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Who has less appropriate hair for the office? Probably some discussion of that.
Anyway, so all of that is background for Gavin Newsom to now tell us that he's instituting a curfew in California from 10 to 5. And for those of you who don't know, apparently the latest science is that the coronavirus goes to sleep at 10 or is highly infectious at 10, one or the other. I haven't figured it out. But this is coming on the heels of him going, after saying that you could not have more than 3 families together in indoor dining in California. Somebody found the fact that he had just dined with a lobbyist at a place called French Laundry, which is probably the ritziest restaurant in California, if not the U.S., Thomas Keller's place. And he then came out and doubled down on it and said, no, it was outdoor, we complied. And a woman who was sitting at a table not too far away had snapped some pictures, and it clearly was not outdoors. And now my question is, and I tweeted this yesterday, Chris had said, I wonder if because I always think about the defense. Okay, you can't go out after 10 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So what if you get arrested? What is the defense? I figured we don't, apparently homeless are exempt from everything. So if you can't be out after 10, you just identify as homeless.
Right.
And that is your defense.
Right.
They're not going to provide shelter. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and the U.S. Supreme Court has already said you can't criminalize being homeless if you can't offer shelter. So if you're out after 10, little free legal advice, just say, I'm homeless.
Yeah. And then, Mark, you'd be like, you'd tell the cops, this loaded Range Rover is my only possession. And this Rolex Daytona, I was just taking it to pawn it so I could get some fentanyl.
Well, we've often talked about, Adam gave me this idea, about self-identifying. And it all started off with gender identity, and we've kind of morphed it into this, that I've wanted to use, and only recently have I trotted it out, a defense to burglary. And the defense to the burglary was, burglary has several elements of the crime. You have to break and enter a location that is not yours with the intent to commit a felony therein. So you can always talk about what the intent for the felony is, but I think that the best defense is to just, and I used this recently with a DA, and I said, my client is stone cold not guilty. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, he's the homeowner. And they said, what do you mean he's the homeowner? I said, he identifies as the homeowner, so therefore he could not break into his house. And she was perplexed. And I said, read your statement of the DA's office that says you can self-identify and nobody can question it. So that was an Adam Carolla defense.
Well, my defense was if you actually do lose and are incarcerated, then you identify as the warden. All right. So, Mark, I don't know what cases you're working on or what cases you can talk about that you're working on.
I've got one case in particular that is related to, in a strange way, the General Flynn case. For those of you who are or are not aware.
Your mic, I don't know, is your mic getting a little wanky there? Yeah, push the cord in.
General Flynn was the national security advisor who was fired and then prosecuted. And part of what he was prosecuted for was his contacts or lying to the FBI. It's been a rather tortured case. But all of that revolved around the Mueller investigation and General Flynn's lobbying for Turkey. I have a guy that I am defending in Utah, where we were, who is a person who's charged with IRS fraud, and the fraud scheme goes as follows. He wasn't performing it. It was somebody from for lack of a better term, a commune or a cooperative in Utah who had biofuel.
Wait a minute. Utah commune, we just hear sex farm.
Or
right?
Polygamy.
Right.
Polygamy, yes. And he had many wives. In fact, his dad... He did. When I asked him on cross, how many wives does your dad have? He said, I don't know. I have no idea.
Wow.
Literally on the record. So the allegation was that this gentleman in Utah would file one-page forms with the IRS, and he would say, I sold X amount of gallons of biofuel, and then claimed a $1 credit. All told, the IRS wrote him checks on these one-page forms for over $500 million. And most of that $500 million ended up in Turkey. And this guy, when caught, he pled guilty. When caught, his basic defense was, the Turkish guy was giving me protection, so I was just shipping the money over there, and I really didn't know, and I was just a dupe, and blah, blah, blah. But the thing that always fascinated me about the case and about this guy's scam is that as tough as it is to get the IRS out of your hair when they want to audit you or anything else, this one-page form, and you'd see the checks. There were checks for 60, 100, 113 million bucks. It was the most astonishing thing that all you had to do was write the check and they would send you the check. Write the form and they would send you the check.
The IRS. Well, who was giving him the money?
The IRS. It was a fuel tax.
Our money.
Yeah,
right.
our money.
Jesus Christ. So how did it end, or did it end?
It's still pending. The corona happened right in the middle of it. The trial is suspended. There's motions for new trial. There was a trial date for December.
The mic's not working.
There's something going on with your mic. Let's see. Here, try mine. Let's see how that works.
And the
Yeah, there you
there
go.
we go.
All right.
And we were supposed to go back to trial in December. That just got vacated because of Corona. They spent a fortune in the courthouse to outfit the courthouse with plexiglass and everything else. But that was, and God knows if you're going to get the jurors to show up at the same time.
More pressingly, what mode of transportation did you take to get here? Because we flew coach. We flew LAX, JetBlue, coach here. How did you get here?
I flew in from Teterboro, and if you want to know first world problems, apparently everybody who's got a private jet in the New York metropolitan area was leaving for Thanksgiving today, and so we were delayed by about an hour, but flew on baby jet. Big boy is not ready yet.
So we've flown the baby jet.
You've flown in the baby jet, and now he calls it baby jet. I've sent Adam on various things when the jet needs to get repaired or something, catch a ride and take it. And now he calls it baby jet. He's still waiting for an invitation on Big Boy.
Well, it is kind of funny and it's kind of psychological, which is when we flew baby jet, I think the first time we flew baby jet, as I may have told you guys, we're leaving Burbank. And we're flying, I think baby jet was ultimately going to end up out here, right?
Correct. It was headed, this is its home. Baby
Right.
Jet's home is right here.
So we were very thankful.
Put a baby jet to bed in Palm Beach.
We're very thankful to catch a ride, I think to Texas or Utah, maybe it was Utah that time around. But it was explained that the reason the jet's coming back to Florida is because it has too many miles on it and needs to be rebuilt. So that's not the whole jet, but the point is whether it's a jet or a prostitute, you want to catch them early. You don't want it at the end of the life experience. That's all. That's all I'm saying. So you flew. How long was the flight out
It's
here?
not bad. It's from Teterboro, it's about 2.5 hours. It's about a 2.5 hour flight. I personally, you will fly commercial at this point. I avoid it like the plague. I'd say, and you can throw stuff at me, but I was raised the first 13 years of my life by a prosecutor in LA who was my dad was a DA, and he was making the magnificent sum when he retired in 1969 of $17,000 a year. And I always thought, I'll tell this story, Adam's heard it, but
17,000 is 41 minutes in the air in the baby jet, by the way.
It's not even that. So I always thought, I used to hang out with the old man. He was my idol. And literally, he joined the DA's office the same month I was conceived. I don't know which started, but I was born in October. He started in January of 57. So I used to go to court with him. And I remember vividly following him to court when I was about 12 or 13, and I was watching him as a prosecutor asking a judge to give this kid who looked like he was my age. I had to be 17 or 18, but he didn't look that old. My father wanted him to ask the judge, and the judge gave him 18 months in state prison for being in a room where marijuana was smoked. And that blew my mind. I could not believe that this poor kid was going to, and he wasn't even inhaling. I mean, it was just in the room where it was smoked. That was actually a crime. And so we left.
It was a young Bill Clinton.
Yeah, well, Bill didn't.
Wasn't his the inhale thing? Yeah. All right, sorry.
And I remember talking to him in the car afterward and being distraught. It's one of my memories. And talking to him and said, how could you do that? I don't care if that's the law. It makes no sense. Blah, blah, blah. And shortly thereafter, he left the DA's office, became a defense lawyer. He came to the bright side. And for years, I would tell that story. And I was partners with the old man for 20 years. And thought, that was my first conversion. I had literally been so persuasive. And I told that story at his funeral. And my mother pulled me aside afterwards. She said, oh, that's so cute that you've spent your entire adult life thinking that was it. She said, I told him, if you think I'm going to raise 3 kids and put him through college on $17,000 a year when you guys entered high school, that he was crazy and I would leave him if he didn't leave the DA's office. And that's why he left.
That reminds me of a story. In 1977, I walked into my dad's podcasting studio.
Which was basically a
The
couch
Humanity
and
and the Grace, in which he was interviewing Dick Cavett. And the finesse, the grace, the humanity of it. I said, that's... My dad, I'll tell you... a couple things now. My dad has lived too long because his son has grown into a middle-aged, rich asshole who's now asking follow-up questions, And my dad laid this one on me. I was talking to him 3 days ago, and he goes, when I got divorced, now, you want to talk about no money. When my parents got divorced, or actually, they didn't get divorced. My dad just left because there's no reason to get divorced because they didn't have any material things
there's
to whack
nothing
up.
to split up. I've often
custody.
wondered that when people say, I ask them, well, what assets do you have? Nothing. You have kids? Well, they're grown.
Yeah.
So why? What's the point?
No, they lived in a house that was my grandmother's spare house in North Hollywood. So nobody owned the house. My grandmother owned it. It was quite a palace, so much so that when it sold 6 years ago for $680,000,
wow,
they bulldozed it.
Right.
Bulldozed it to the ground. And it was a half lot. Like, it wasn't even a big lot. But anyway, so he lived there. He had nothing. He had basically what Tony Randall had at the beginning of The Odd Couple, like a frying pan, a spatula, and a duffel bag. And he just left. But it's also weird when you become and then surpass the ages of your parents at the time. When my dad left, he was 41, 42 years of age. He had nowhere to go, and he had no money. He didn't have a credit card, didn't have a checking account, he didn't have anything. So he had nowhere to go. So the only place, and he had no goddamn friends either. He couldn't even surf on a sofa. Do you know where he went?
Back to his mom's?
No, she was in South Philly.
Oh.
He went 1 mile away to my grandparents' home, who are the parents of my mother.
Wow.
So
now that's civilized.
He left the shitty extra house they had, the flopped in, and then moved into the 1-bedroom, 1-bath, could only get to the bathroom by walking through the bedroom, 1,000 square foot in North Hollywood.
How old were you?
I was like 8, 9.
Who'd you go with?
I was just like, obviously, I'd see him if I went to my grandparents' house. He was on the he was in the den. They didn't even have another room. It wasn't like they got a pool house or anything. It was just my grandfather's den. It was the only place that had a TV set, and my dad flopped in it. But here's what he said to me the other day. He goes, so I had nowhere to go. I had no money. I had nowhere to go. I couldn't do anything. I had to go sleep, he said, in my grandfather's closet. But it was like a den anyway. So I said, why didn't you have any money? And he went, what? I went, well, why don't you have money? You're 42 years old. Well, you're a white guy. Come on now. You're living in modern times. So what's going on? He says, proudly, by the way, I was a school teacher.
That's what I thought.
When they live in refrigerator boxes in the alley, they have houses and stuff. They do things, you know what I mean? He goes, well, I was a teacher. Like, it's so noble.
But I always thought he was a teacher. But what did he teach? Don't tell me he taught finance.
No, I wish he taught shop. At least we would have had something to talk about at home. He was a kind of on-again, off-again school teacher. He did
social studies?
He did kind of like special needsy stuff. Like, he had, kids were troubled. And then at a certain point, he got a regular job at 5 Acres in Altadena,
right,
which is basically foster home. I mean, not foster home, but it's a orphanage, essentially. So he worked at this, it's like the director of education at this orphanage, which had a bunch of bungalows and stuff, and like half the kids would go. You and I have been to fundraisers for them.
Yeah, you do fundraisers for the place that employs your dad.
Yes, half of them would go to school, and the other half would stay there because they couldn't, they weren't manageable at school.
And how is he now? I mean, you talked to him 3 days ago. Has he moved off your mom's parents' house or couch?
Yes, he's funny. He's just one of these guys. He's fairly worthless. I mean, let's be honest. He's fairly worthless. And, it was funny. It's funny. He said to me, so he doesn't do anything. He doesn't work on anything. He can't fix things.
Is he drawing a pension from CalPERS? Do you know?
Probably. And his wife taught at UCLA or worked in the administration at UCLA. But he was saying to me, he was complaining to me about 5 years ago. He's sitting there and he goes, boy, man, your stepmom, man, she's on the roof. She's cleaning the gutters out. She's scheduling this. She's doing that. She's cleaning. And he's like, I wish she'd relax. And I said, you better fucking hope she doesn't relax. You don't do jack squat, old man. So I don't know what. I like the people that sit around and they're annoyed by the other people that are fucking doing all the shit they're supposed to be doing. But I bought him a trumpet. So I got him
and now he has trumpet lessons?
$3,000 trumpet. Now he claims like the action is bad in one of the valves and stuff. He wants to take it back. It's a disaster. So he's alive. My mom is alive. They're sort of technically hanging around. No less productive people on the planet. And I always describe them. It's kind of weird because people are like, my mom's like 87, my dad's like 89. Like,
really?
They're old, but they're here. You know what I mean?
But do they, before we're not going to get into the law quite yet, but I'm more curious. Has becoming grandparents changed them?
No, not much. They're they're flatliners, but I always describe them as this, and I mean it. Like, people think, well, they must have pretty good genetics. They're
right, 87, 89.
They're knocking on the door of 90. They must have good genetics. They have horrible genes. Look at me. They have bad genes. What it is neither one of them has a mile on them. So I describe them. Imagine you just picture the shittiest American car, a Vega, a Pacer, a K car, a Pinto. Imagine if you just bought a Pinto and just put it in the garage and put it up on blocks. And then at some point, people will come around and go, it's a piece of shit, but it's brand new. That's my parents. Shitty American car with zero mileage.
Zero mileage on it. So I guess it can stay around.
My dad has never done work in the sun. He's never loved and lost. He's never had a motorcycle accident. He's never gotten into a bar fight. Like, he has 0 miles on.
But
he's never had stress. His biggest stress is, when is his wife going to be done cleaning the gutter so she can make me an omelet? That's the biggest stressor he's had.
I need more depth to him. There's got to be more depth to him.
He likes psychology.
Okay.
He's
a student of the human condition.
He's a student of all humans' conditions except for his own. That he is not a good student of. But everyone else's condition, he's got a handle on.
Okay. And didn't you do a podcast with him?
He did a podcast. Let me tell you what a winner my dad is. Okay. I'll tell you a couple of good. I don't know. We'll talk about the law in a second, but I'll tell this because Mark will get it. Mark, I think you'll get a kick out of it.
You have to understand, we call this the best hour in the universe for one reason only, because we don't see enough of each other, even though we live a horse trail away from one another. But when we get together, we just talk. So.
Well, I'll give you a couple of.
In fact, usually a shot, but so far I haven't seen the Don Julio 1942. I even said I was going to buy him.
It was on the rider.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, there it is.
Oh, look at that! Oh. Waiting for that.
All right.
To your father and my mother.
Yes. Do we? What do you do? Lemon? Yeah. Lime, huh?
Oh yeah.
There you go.
All right, well,
welcome to Palm Beach.
I hope I don't get disrespectful speaking about my father now. But sometimes the booze makes me open up a little bit.
Yeah, you might. The inhibitions might fade away.
So I'll give you two good dad stories.
Okay.
And just to give you an insight. Because, see, here's the thing. You're a businessman at heart. Like, Mark, yeah, he loves the little man. He's a champion of the little man and the ultra rich and everyone in between. Let's be honest. Anyone who can cut him a check or pawn jewelry.
I like to characterize it as a Robin Hood practice.
Right.
Take from the rich, give to the poor.
That's right. Okay. But imagine this is just put on, but ultimately I kind of think of you as like a super Armo businessman, right?
I think that you can't, I'm Armenian, we're Armos, and you can't, it's very difficult to shake the DNA.
Okay. So imagine my dad's business acumen, right? I just want you to picture this. He's like Scarlett O'Hara. He relies on the generosity of others, okay? So when his son made it big, I started leasing him every year a luxury car.
Wow, that was very nice of you.
I thought, look, I got money. He's poor.
Did you do that for your mom, too?
No, I would do, it pissed her off, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, what?
I would fix her. I put a roof on her house. I did a bunch of shit, or her grandmother's house, or whose fucking house it was. You know, I did a bunch of shit for her too. But the point is I'd leased my dad a car. So I leased him a luxury car. Then I leased him another, 3 years or 4 years. Then I leased him a Jag. And then we were getting to the end of the lease, right? And my dad came over to visit me. And I noticed he was driving my stepmom's Honda CR-V.
At the time that the Jag lease was in effect.
Right. And he's angling for a third car at this point. But I see him pull up in the CR-V with the cloth interior. By the way, front wheel drive. Fuck him. That car just screams, I don't like cars, but I must have one. But anyway, which she owns. So again, put the Armo brain on this.
Got it.
I'm paying for the insurance. I'm paying for the mileage. I'm paying for the Jag. They own the CR-V, and he's putting mileage on the CR-V. Okay?
Exactly.
So I say to him, why didn't you drive the Jag? And not only that, the Jag, I pay for 12,000 miles a year. We get to the end, it's like 36,000 miles.
Right.
He's at like 21,000, and we're 2 weeks away from turning the thing in. Which, by the way, they do not kick that money back.
No, you don't get that. That's money that never comes back.
Right, they just pocket that money. So I say, Dad, not only do you have a beautiful Jaguar, not only is it paid for and the insurance is paid for, but you're well under the mileage on it. So you should be driving the Jag when you come to visit me. And he goes, yeah, okay, yeah, I get it. And then he starts talking about re-upping with the Jag. All right. The next time he comes over, he shows up in the CR-V again. And I go, Dad, what are you doing? And he's like, it was behind me in the driveway. And I said, Dad, your Jag is due to be turned in. It's under the mileage. You're not driving it. I got to pay for that mileage. And he goes, yeah, how's that mileage thing work again? I said, the way it works is I already paid for it, but you're not driving. He goes, fine. And then he wants to lease it again. I said, okay, we'll see. Next time he shows up in the CR-V again. I go, hey, fuck it, old man. We're done. You're not getting another Jag. I told you 3 goddamn times. You drove the fucking CR-V over here 3 times. You won't drive. Then he gets all puffy with me. He goes, I didn't know part of the lease was I had to drive the car. You want me to go home and just go around the block 10 times so we're even? I said, no, Dad, but I'm leasing you a car, and you can show me the courtesy of driving the car when you come over. And he goes, I don't know why that's important. I don't get it. And I said, you don't get it. And he said, no, I don't get it. And I said, you can't picture why that would mean something to me. And he goes, no. I have no idea. He's a therapist. He goes, no.
And a student of human
You
condition.
leased the car. You wanted to lease the car. I'm driving your stepmother's car. What's the difference? I said, I realized he doesn't speak any language except for flugelhorn, right? That's the only thing. I said, Dad, how about this? You don't think this makes a difference? Like, no. Okay, you cannot see my point of view on this. You can't see how that would affect me. You can't see how I wouldn't be apt to want to lease you another car? He goes, no, I don't get, what's the difference? I don't know what the rules are and all this stuff. I said, Dad, imagine if there were a couple of guys you played jazz with, and one guy said, can you buy me a flugelhorn? And you went, okay, I'll buy you a flugelhorn. And then the next time you guys got together to jam, he showed up with his old dented flugelhorn. And you said, where's the flugelhorn I bought you? And he said, hey, who's counting? Don't think about it. And then he showed up with it again. And then the third time he said, oh, by the way, can I get a new flugelhorn? What would you say to him then? And he was like, oh, shit. Yeah, mate. Now I understand. Yeah, I had to put it in trumpetese. Trumpetese. I don't think anyone said that word.
I don't know where you invented it.
I was at a Cuban place, and that was an appetizer. I think we got the trumpetese.
As you were telling that story, I don't know why. This shows you how bizarre my brain is. I was thinking of, did anybody else watch the Rudy Giuliani press conference the other day?
My wife memorized it.
Did you see the hair dye sweat coming down the side of Rudy's face? Now, for those of you who don't know, Rudy, in his day, prior to being a mayor, was a balls-to-the-walls, kind of take-no-prisoners U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. I mean, that's what he made his career on. I mean, this was somebody who was highly regarded. He kind of parlayed mostly insider trading, like white-collar criminal prosecution. And then to remember that, and I remember because I was probably at the time when he was a U.S. attorney, probably a 5 or 10-year lawyer, and had just started doing kind of significant federal cases. And if you were in that world, he was somebody you knew about. And he invented basically the perp walk, where he would have the cops go in to some, Wall Street style place and perp walk the person out who he had just indicted and then prosecuted him, and that was kind of his claim to fame. And then to now watch him between the Four Seasons landscaping press conference and that one that he just gave, and I guess this is part of always defending the indefensible, but I keep thinking there's got to be a strategy here. There has to be some kind of strategy, and I think I figured it out.
Yeah, not to mention the Sacha Baron Cohen shirt tuck incident. I mean, he had quite an eventful 3 weeks, right?
And, and his son works in the White House and just was diagnosed with coronavirus as well. But I think, and to some degree you could argue that it was him who got Trump impeached as well by doing the Ukraine nonsense that played right into the House's hands. But I think what's happening here, and I've been saying for about 2 months that I didn't think that there was going to be a method or a pathway for them to get to the U.S. Supreme Court. Because if you saw the U.S. Supreme Court cases that have been coming out, either that arose out of the Pennsylvania or Wisconsin and Michigan, there would be splits, but basically reading the opinions or listening to people, I didn't know that there was a pathway. Now I think there was a pathway, and it was basically you saw what you and I talked about a month ago happened yesterday. Trump summoned 2 of the Republican Michigan state legislators to the White House. And this is what I had thought going in, even before the election, was going to, that I thought you were going to buy me a shot. What happened?
Yeah.
And
beers for 13-year-olds. Mark's a grown man. Thank you.
So he invited the 2 state legislators from Michigan to the White House yesterday. And what I am trying to game this out to figure out what the end game is, because I just can't believe that Rudy has completely lost his mind. I believe if the Constitution reads, and Alito has said this in his opinions, that if there is some credible sense that there is fraud in the voting, if you can create that, then it's up to the state legislatures to send the electors. They can override, a state legislature can override the popular vote, at least if it hasn't been certified. If it has been certified, I can spend an hour talking about that. But so part of my thought is that if they get Michigan, if they get Wisconsin, and potentially someplace else, I don't know if it's Georgia or Arizona or something else, and they send a different electoral slate, that would be the fight in the House, which would then presumably get to the U.S. Supreme Court. Because otherwise, trying to figure this out is like, it reminds me of when I go into the criminal courts building in Los Angeles and I watch some public defender snatching defeat from the jaws of victory of a witness and trying to figure out what they're doing or what they're thinking. And maybe I give them too much credit, but that's the only thing I can think of, is that somehow they want to create his ideas, Giuliani's ideas, create enough chaos to get them into the U.S. Supreme Court so that the Supreme Court can rule on this and say, yes, the Constitution says state legislatures control.
Well, now, as you were saying this, I was thinking about the turnabout as fair play and my chaos theory. So leading up to the election, my theory was that, the Democrats and CNN and MSNBC and all, they would all conspire just to create so much chaos about Trump. It's like, oh, he went to Arlington and took a dump on the tomb of the unknown soldier. Insiders say, we don't have verification. And then they would just launch off on that. And then it's the whole coronavirus thing. And they just go, there's so much, literally just throwing so much spaghetti against the wall that eventually America would just go, enough is enough. Like, we don't like Biden, we don't care. We want it to end. You
said about a year ago when I asked you to prognosticate, because Adam's got a...
crystal brain.
Yes, he does have a crystal brain. And he's got a very good long-term vision. And a year ago, he kept telling me Trump's biggest problem is the exhaustion. And that's what he thought. Adam was saying, this is well before impeachment or anything else. He kept telling me it's the exhaustion factor.
Right. And so now maybe Trump and company are trying to raise so much speculation and create so much. And it can be effective. I mean, in that you hear, thank you, what's her name, wants to release the Kraken. You hear her?
Right. Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell, who, by the way...
another shot, by the way, sir.
Yeah. Poor guy's got to do 3 shows today.
I know. You got to do 2.
I know.
You're going to be up with me in the second show. I mean, the first show.
So when he talks about Sidney Powell, by the way, Sidney Powell is the woman who did the press conference, who's an ex-federal prosecutor, who represents Michael Flynn now, and said about release the Kraken. And look, for whatever you say ideologically, if you're on the right or you're on the left, I am a dyed-in-the-wool, and I admit it, criminal defense lawyer. And I may be ideologically 180 degrees opposed to Flynn and some of this stuff. But at the same time, I love the fact that she exposed that the DOJ was playing fast and loose and dirty in Flynn's case. There is no doubt, none whatsoever, that in Flynn's case, his own frickin' lawyers deep-sixed the fact that in the notes, they had made an off-the-record deal to not prosecute his son. They didn't want to disclose that to Flynn's business partner who they were prosecuting. I mean, that's vintage DOJ. That's what they do. And so I've got this kind of, and people get mad, but let's say, look, if you have done criminal defense, and I've said it for years, the only people who hold the government to account are criminal defense lawyers. You see what the government does. You see what they do on a daily basis. I argue to jurors all the time. Why do you come in here and assume that what the Department of Justice tells you is true? They're no different than the post office. And why do you think they got it right? It makes absolutely no sense. It's a government bureaucracy, and they don't understand their duty for the most part. So going back to Sidney Powell, the one thing that gives me pause, she did that press conference. Rudy, at this point, as I said, I struggle mightily to understand what he's doing. But she's no dummy. And she knows that she's gone all in on this. And it's a huge bet for her. And that it sounds crazy. It sounds conspiratorial. But at the same time, she said the same thing about Flynn, and she turned up the documents. So I don't want to feed into the conspiracy theory.
Well, what is the Kraken, and when is she going to release it, and why wouldn't she release the Kraken sooner than later?
This is why, in the law, there's a thing. If you've got a defendant, a client, and you think that you have a doubt as to their ability to participate in the trial or their defense, you can declare a doubt to the judge. It suspends the proceedings. It's called a 1368. I declare a doubt. And I've done it. Now, it's rare, exceedingly rare, but if my client, I've got one client charged with murder famously who has no idea what's going on, thinks his mom's still alive, who's accused of killing, and I've declared a doubt multiple times. With her, I almost am at the point where I wish I could declare a doubt, because you can't wait. You can't just make that assertion, file 22 lawsuits, lose them all without producing the evidence. And you can't just strategically, you can't wait and then just say, I'm going to unleash it once I get to the U.S. Supreme Court, because the U.S. Supreme Court presumably is going to say, we don't have this in the record. It has to be in the record in order for us to judge it. So at some point, and it's rapidly coming, either they have to, the old expression, fish or cut bait. She's got to parade it out or unfold it.
But back to the chaos theory, maybe they'll just throw enough stuff out there, talk about the Kraken, get Rudy's over there, he's dripping Grecian formula. By the way,
don't you feel bad for him, though?
Look.
Don't you feel bad? I mean, he is.
I like anyone with energy. Number one,
I know you do. You like
love energy. I'm attracted to energy. I'm like a kitten, and I see movement. I go after it. You know what I mean? It's because I come from flatliners. So I love the energy. It's the idea that he can produce enough sweat to activate his Grecian formula. And also, listen, I don't know if there's any gents out here in the audience, but look, once you lose all your hair, you don't have to dye the 6 strands you have left. You know what I mean?
I always say gray is better than none, right? So,
right. But he's dyeing, if you are simply dyeing the right and left side of your head, put the hair dye away. You know what I mean? Or go all in. Get a Sharpie, do the top coverage, you know what I mean? Spray on the miracle hair, something. Because I see him on Fox, and sometimes he shows up with the gray on the other side.
And, his ex-wife was quoted somewhere recently as saying that she feels bad, even though they're divorced, that there's nobody in his life to try and give him that kind of little guidance, or what I would call a forearm shiver, to give him a little direction. I mean, he's on kind of a world, or at least a national platform, and it's a very heavy fall that he's taken.
Yeah.
I mean, career-wise, reputational-wise. I mean, I have a hard time. I laugh at it, obviously, because it's funny, but at the same time, it's kind of pathetic.
Well, every time he shows up on Hannity, it's 2 things. He has the side dye on the hair, and then the next move is the glasses. The glasses have become weaponized.
Yeah.
He shows up, he's got the glasses on. He's like, Sean, if these people don't stop, he starts waving the glasses around. Then he puts the glasses back on. Then he whips the glasses off again. I've done 1 million of those hits.
I know you
You're
have.
You're not looking at anything.
You're like a regular on Tucker now.
Well, I get I get the call the day of. They drive the van over.
Do they really? Oh, you do satellite dish?
Yeah.
Now that's, for those of you who don't do these hits, if they really want you, they will send a car for you. That's the shtick. At one point, when I was a favored son at CNN, they built a studio in my office so I could go down 2 floors because it was whenever a white woman was missing who was pregnant, I was on speedy dial. So that was kind of but they rarely, you have to go back 20 years to find them paying the money to send a satellite truck, because that's an expensive proposition. The satellite truck comes out. First of all, they've got 2 guys who have to man the satellite truck. Second of all, the truck itself costs more than operating baby jet per hour. I mean,
Probably,
no, satellite time, the 2 guys, the whole thing, it's an expensive proposition.
Well, so they send the truck over, and they literally just pull it up my driveway. And they pull it sort of the end of the driveway, so it's a little out of the traffic. And it probably has kind of a leveling device, like a camper or something. You put like a little scissor jack or something, if you're on an incline or slope or something. But the van pulls up, got the air conditioning blowing. They got the camera over here and the screen down below, but they turn the screen off because it's like a 2-second delay, and it'll fuck you up when you're doing it. It has the seat here with a kind of table that swings out, and the guy will come in. They'll go, the hit's at 5:30. You come down at 5:25. You sit in a chair. They run the mic up through you. They put the clip in your ear, and then they just do the hit, and then they leave. And my son is a huge Tucker Carlson fan. He's in the house. Let me tell you how jaded this little shit is. I go, you want to go check out the Tucker Carlson remote van? He's like, I'm good. Could you imagine that? If somebody...
I can't actually. For those of you who don't know or haven't heard, Sonny is an old soul. Yeah. I mean, I walk in the mornings, and I will occasionally see Sonny walking in the neighborhood. And one of the things that I admire about Sonny and your job as a father is when you talk to somebody his age, what is he now, 14?
14. Yeah.
Okay. It's very rare, for those of you who are parents, you will know what I'm talking about, for a 14-year-old male to look you straight in the eye while he's talking to you and talk subject, verb, predicate. And not only does he do that, but he's very respectful and he's curious. So
he
takes after his mother.
He's a great kid. So they pull the van up. So the way it works is I just get the call the day of. And my assistant says, Tucker wants to do a hit tonight. And I go, what's the subject? And then he throws out the subject. And I go, fine. And then I go do my podcast. I end about 3:30. The hit will be 5:30. I'll go home, shave, get my little makeup buffer out, put a little powder on, and then I get a steno pad and I try to write down some jokes. Like I try to, whatever the subject is, I'll make like 5 beats of the joke and I'll just put it out in front of me on the table, though you can't really look down. That's kind of the problem. You just have leading up into it. You can hear the feed, you can watch the feed, you try to kind of commit these to memory and then hit the beat. So I'll give you a couple of the jokes I told I just did it on Thursday, actually. The subject was Barack Obama and his 767-page book, and just how big the book was, and the audiobook is 29 hours. I don't know if you know that.
Yes, I knew that. And I have a question. He obviously does not have, Barack, the president, does not have Armo DNA. Do you know why?
No, because he would have hammered that check and done a 4-hour and 20-minute audiobook.
Or would have signed a multi-book deal.
Yeah, would have made 7 books out of that.
Exactly.
Right.
So that shows you that he is not Armo. There is no Armo in the woodpile.
29 hours. I've done 5 books. The combined audiobook of 5 books is 29 hours. That's 5 books.
And you were New York Times bestseller, so it shows you that there's no coin in doing quantity over quality.
All right, I will tell you the jokes I told on Tucker about how big and how long and how vast Obama's book was. I said his book was so big, I downloaded it and my phone got heavier. His book was so big. I got it on Amazon. It was $19.95, $1,300 for shipping. And then he said, did you listen to the whole audiobook? I said, no, I haven't heard the whole thing. I just heard the first 17 hours on the toilet this morning. It's a little racy for the Fox crowd.
I do not think, I would find it hard to believe that anybody would invest 29 hours in listening to any book. That to me,
how about recording it?
What?
I think
recording
Obama
it, I can. If you get a big enough check, you could talk forever. I mean, I could, but for a big enough check, I just find it hard to believe. I wish there was some way to kind of test it, that anybody would listen for 29 hours. I have a great deal of resistance to that idea or that concept. I wonder, was the editor, who's the publisher? Do you know? You and I have talked about publishers because the publishing industry, we both published books, and now Adam smartly self-publishes. Do you not?
No, I used a publisher in my last book.
Did you?
Yeah.
So I can't ransack them?
Yeah, no, you can. I can't remember their name. They're good. I just can't remember their name.
Are you going to do a spot?
Yeah, I'm going to do a spot.
You know, it's funny because I have a sense he's going to do a spot, and if it's the spot I'm thinking of, are they going to be, yeah.
Well, Rudy.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Rudy Giuliani.
So here you go. I didn't know this, but now how does the sponsor we're going to find out.
I
will guarantee you that Rudy was not using
Madison Reed Mister.
There you go.
This is
a long way to go for that plug.
No, he was using a Sharpie that was dipping in Indian oil. Indian ink, I should say. Anyway, Madison Reed Mister. Like Rudy should have used it. You want a little more pepper and a little less salt. You want a nice natural look. Madison Reed makes the stuff for the women. Now they make stuff with the men, or for the men. It is Madison Reed Mister. And it'll work on your beard. It'll work on your dome as well. You go online. You just match your hair color. They send you a little kit, put the gloves on, work the color through there, let it sit for 10 minutes, rinse it off. Bob is your uncle. Quick, easy, and a natural look, and not the shoe polish look, not John Travolta circa 2011 look. It is Madison Reed Mister. Right, Gary?
Go to MadisonReedMister.com. That's MadisonReedMR.com and use code ADAM10 for 10% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that's code ADAM10.
All right, what else do we got?
I would love, I don't know if you do this, but I would love questions.
All right, let's take a
We
question.
haven't ever done questions. Huh? Lynn Wood. Lynn is an old friend, a dear friend. What? Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah. So.
Did he get released?
Yeah, Kyle was released yesterday. John Pierce, who is his lawyer, is from Los Angeles.
Sorry, Kyle's the young man, 17, I think 16, 17
years old.
Went into Kenosha, brought the long rifle, but also first aid kit. Seems to be a decent kid. And got chased down. 2 guys got shot, blah, blah, blah.
And Lynn has adopted this case, and I literally have known Lynn since when I was defending Gary Condit, who was a congressman in the Chandra Levy thing. Lynn took Gary's wife's case for defamation and libel against one of the tabloids for saying that that Gary's wife had no thumbs or some crazy thing on the front page of some supermarket tablet. And I, at the time, I would be very frank, I wouldn't have given 50 cents for that case in terms of him getting anywhere. And he got somewhere. And then he also famously, if any of you watched or followed the Richard Jewell saga, the Olympic bomber, he turned that around as well. And then John Benet Ramsey. Lynn has had a storied career.
And Nicholas Sandmann.
Sandman.
Right.
He also was represented and he would probably punch me if he was here for saying it, but recently lost the case against Elon Musk on the miner with the submarine for the kids, but gave it a hell of a try.
Oh, the miner, like in Ecuador with the mining guys who were trapped in the whatever,
exactly.
and they called the guy a pedophile or something.
Tried that, got into, there was a defense verdict. He was up against, that was an uphill battle for him because he was in California. Elon Musk is beloved in California, and Elon gave apparently a theatrical performance on the stand. Anyway, Lynn has been very supportive of Rittenhouse. Rittenhouse, who was charged with 2 counts, I believe, of murder or assault, was released yesterday. The My Pillow guy and Ricky Schroeder posted the bail, right?
Oh, really?
Or did you too?
Ricky Schroeder. And this guy. Yeah. Ricky Schroeder and the My Pillow guy.
Yeah. Now that's a combination. That could be a Jeopardy question. $500 who posted bail for Kyle Rittenhouse.
Right. Wow. Yeah. We talked about it on a previous episode. I think they're going to have a hard time convicting that guy. I mean, he's being physically chased when he turns around, gets cornered, and shoots the guy. The other guy, and the other guys chase him. The other guy's trying to hit him with a skateboard. But here's an interesting question for you. Evidently, the guys that got shot, the guys that were killed, and then the other guy kind of got his bicep blown off. They all seem to have pretty sketchy records. Like they all seem to be up to no good with a track record of nefarious activities that wouldn't look good under the light of scrutiny. How much of that factors in, and does any of it factor in?
No, I always say the mother of the judge has not been born who's going to let that in. And the reasoning is this. First of all, in the state court, the judges have a very close, some would say symbiotic relationship with the prosecution. They carry, I always say, there are judges who I will call DA in a robe, district attorney in a robe.
But can I ask this? What if it's germane? Like, what if you go, this guy showed up at rallies in the past, got into conflicts, physically beat up, reporters or other people, and now he's continuing this pattern. That's why he was chasing Rittenhouse.
I'll give you 2 examples. The judge would say, most judges would say, it goes to Rittenhouse's state of mind. He would have to know in his state of mind that these guys were bad guys, were going to do him harm, and that is what informed his decision to utilize deadly force.
He couldn't possibly know.
He couldn't possibly know. I'll give you a different example also, since we're talking about it. The gentleman who is accused of murdering George Floyd. Now, everybody has seen the videotape of him kneeling on the neck. Now, normally, nothing about George Floyd would come in that instance. In that case, however, and I don't have any I don't have any inside information, but I have read that they worked together at the same location, and it was a nightclub, and they were both security. If he could make a plausible claim, the accused, the defendant, the cop, that he knew some of these things, that could potentially go to his state of mind. And then you could get into things that normally would not be allowed in. A judge might allow in something because they knew each other, that informed his thinking, that is why he didn't take his knee off, because he had a previous encounter, something like that. That's the way, at least the analysis, a judge is supposed to do.
So Rittenhouse, I can't see, other than we talked about before, bringing the gun across state lines, if in fact
because one of the guys who was interviewed yesterday prior to him being released was, I believe, the guy who had acquired the gun, who's in the crosshairs and will be, and they'll do what prosecutors do best, which is threaten somebody to get them to sing from their script. He was talking about the fact, and why I've said all along, you could win the battle, lose the war. You could get it so that you could win the murder, lose on a manslaughter because of your mental state, and then they could just pile up the time that you get on the transportation across state lines, those kinds of things as well.
When do you think that'll go to trial?
If they were smart, they would not have waived time and gone to trial immediately. And that's a very political case in terms of who's prosecuting it, who's the governor of that state, which political parties they belong to. Lynn and Pierce are both playing that angle.
And your supposition is that Lynn would have a much cleaner shot at a lot of the defamation stuff, as he did with Nicholas Sandmann against some of these major news outlets that were calling him a white supremacist and things like that, if he is not convicted.
Correct.
If he is convicted,
you've got a real problem. I mean, that's a hurdle.
But if you're CNN, Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, whatever, if you call the guy a white supremacist and he's convicted of bringing a firearm across a state line, I still feel like that defamation will stick.
That's one of the nuances that you would have to put in. And actually, that would go to damages, because they would say, okay, if you are a convicted, say you get convicted of something else. If you're a convicted felon, what are your potential damages for being called a white supremacist when you're already a convicted felon? And that would factor into the analysis as well.
Well, I think that's about... we got one more question. Sorry, last one.
So, in your expert opinion, Mark, if you're betting money on this, what are the odds of the election getting to the Supreme Court?
I will tell you, I have been having this argument discussion for months now, because I thought all along, I had thought that based on what I was seeing, that Biden would win the popular vote and that Biden would win the various states that he needed to. And one of the reasons that I think that Trump is going to go all in is based on my experience with dealing with clients who are facing existential threats. I have dealt with numerous people over almost 40 years who are dealing with an existential threat. What I call an existential threat is, if Trump is out of office, he loses his presidential immunity, at least as interpreted by the DOJ. January 21st, either the Attorney General or the Manhattan DA, both are state prosecutors, could indict him. They may, for all I know, the Southern District of New York already has an indictment, but that wouldn't matter if he pardons himself on the way out the door. And if he's extricated, he will pardon himself. I'm telling you, he's either going to pardon himself or he'll resign and have Pence pardon him. His exposure is the state court of New York and the DA and the Attorney General. The Attorney General has already showed she's not afraid of bringing charges against him. That kind of existential threat puts him into a situation where he's cornered. And when I see cornered clients, I know that they will do virtually anything to retain any hope of not going down that road. That's why I think that he's not going to go willingly.
But percentage, you think?
Percentage? I think that for all of those who are saying this is over, you're way premature. I think percentage-wise, it's better than 50-50 that this is either going to end up in the Supreme Court, and then then the shift goes to the Supreme Court. Do they want to take it? There's a famous quote about the Supreme Court reads election returns. That is, and John Roberts, the Chief Justice, is what you would call an institutionalist. He doesn't want to get anywhere near this. But you've got Alito, you've got Thomas, you've got arguably Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, I don't know in terms of what she's going to do. But this is, I think that the wild ride, Mr. Toad's wild ride, is still to come. I do not think he's going to concede. I think he's going to do everything possible to maintain his power, because he knows that if he leaves, he's going to be in the crosshairs, and his life as he knows it is not going to be the same.
Well, it's a very interesting, informed take, because I think everyone else just thinks he doesn't want to leave because he doesn't want to be a civilian, but you're saying he doesn't want to leave because he doesn't want to be a convict.
I'm telling you, I agree with Howard Stern. Howard Stern has famously said repeatedly that he has...
1942. All right.
Wow, look at that. Thank you.
We get Mark out of his shell.
I'll wrap it up after Don Julio.
Jesus Christ. This is why I can't leave the house.
So the thing is, I think his life, and Stern has argued this for a while, was arguably better. He didn't have to put up with all the nonsense. And for whatever way you view him, he probably could create, the speculation is a media channel combined with Newsmax, buy OAN, do whatever. He could be fabulously wealthy. He wouldn't worry. By the way, all those people who talk about his $400 million debt are morons, because I'm not a Trumpian, but he's got assets that dwarf the $400 million debt. You're a moron if you keep talking about that. You really don't understand leverage or real estate. But the fact is, what's happening here is he knows what's coming. I mean, there's got to be, he knows that he's got a mortal threat from the DA and the Attorney General. And the only way is to run out the clock. And that's for him to remain in power, and he's got Bill Barr at the DOJ to enforce the DOJ policy, which, by the way, is not law, but it's policy that the DOJ says you can't indict a sitting president.
All right, I need you to hold my hair while I vomit in the toilet in our green room. So it will. I know it seems short. No, we're heavyweights, everyone. We're professionals. You guys shouldn't be drinking as much.
Take a nap. Shake it off.
Shake it off. Mark Garrigus, everybody. And until next... Oh, we should give some plugs out. I don't know. You go to
First
Adam.
of all,
Yeah.
Let's give him a round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
I often say for those of you who don't know who Mark Twain is, he's the Mark Twain raconteur of his generation.
God love you, Mark.
He dispenses wisdom, sight. I literally think, and I'll tell him this, that I'm a much better lawyer for my friendship with Adam. I mean, he gives you many of the... And by the way, I will tell you, nothing drives... They're listening to this or will be listening to this. Nothing drives prosecutors crazier than the fact that I'm friends with Adam. It drives them nuts. So on that note, thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, guys. So until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Mark Garrigus saying mahalo. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Tune in next Saturday for an all-new episode.